When you're working with CLT buildings and you've got perhaps a restaurant on the ground floor and you've got dwellings perhaps both above and to the side, you have to be very careful about the sound insulation there, because the requirements, or recommended requirements at least, they are extreme. In the Swedish standard, you can find this requirement, DNTW50, which is actually, it's the DNTW plus C 50 to 3150, should be no less than 65 dB. And that's a lot. That's quite a lot. And that's for a restaurant without loud music. So how can this look like? Perhaps if you have a unit separation wall, it's a load carrying, the CLT. And then I would propose something like this, that you go with a triple gypsum. Oops, let's see if I can draw a little bit straighter. 3 layers of gypsum. And then, depending on the ceiling height, but perhaps 95 beam, what's it called? I can't find the word, I'm too tired. 95 regel, I call it in Swedish now. Let's do this video in Swinglish. And fully insulated, of course. And then an extra large air gap here as well. So usually I would recommend like 95 plus 15 for unit separation walls, but this one you might have to increase to perhaps 55 or something like that. You can calculate it a bit back and forth and see until you get the really high requirement, because the thicker the air gap, well, actually, here's an important notice. When an acoustician like me talks about air gap, chances are high that we are talking about the distance between the both plates, because this is what gives you good sound insulation. Whereas other disciplines, when you say air gap, they might refer to this one. And there's been a lot of confusion about this, I've noted. But anyways, this one should be maximized as large as possible. That's good. And then the CLT could be, I don't know, 140 to 160, perhaps. It's the structural engineer who decides. And then you will probably also need another layer here. And then I would recommend that you go with like some wooden lath, like 22. And then point connection with lying acoustic profiles. I'll draw them like this, so they are like resilient profiles. And another 2 layers of gypsum, or a wooden plate and gypsum. And preferably some mineral wool as well in this cavity. So that's quite a monster construction, this. And the reason that I want to do it like this is that it's both this transmission path. So if we consider that this is a restaurant, this is a dwelling. But you also have to consider that you have this situation, that this is the horizontal. But don't forget about the vertical as well. So if you have, usually there's something like this, you got the floor slab and then elastic interlayers here, preferably both on the top and bottom. And then you got this monster wall I just created here. And if you, and you probably got something similar here, but not as extreme, a thinner air gap on the upper part, because here is just dwelling and dwelling, restaurant, and dwelling here as well. And if you got it like this, 2 elastic interlays like this is pretty good to take care about this one. But with such an extreme requirement as DNTW, oops, that one is behind. DNTW 50 was 65. I mean, that's That's about as extreme as a requirement can get. It doesn't get much worse than that. The reason that is, this is probably not enough. You're still going to get flanking transmission this way. So if you have 2 elastic interlayers here, and you also add this flanking reduction layer with a wooden lath and some acoustic profiles and a little bit of mineral wool here, then you can further improve the flanking transmission, because now there's quite a lot of layers that it has to pass through until it gets up there. So that's how you could solve it. And remember, this one is also important to have if you got if it's the outer wall is also perhaps a load carrying. Let's say it's a CLT wall out here, and this is the street. I don't bother about drawing the whole facade, but you're gonna need all the load-bearing walls. I would recommend this extra installation, because you can get flanking transmission in any direction. So don't remember that. And then of course you need a floor structure that is a monster as well. And that one is preferably solved with maybe we can draw it in this one as well. If it's not too small. Well, that's the beauty of it. You can zoom in a bit. Some kind of extremely powerful acoustic hangers here, I would say. The spring hangers is probably your best bet here. And perhaps those ones that are both elastomer and I don't really know how to draw them, but there are products like that is very good. And let's say go for a triple layer gypsum, mineral wool in the cavity. And then here on the top side, you will probably you're gonna get an installation floor, one of these with also elastic layers there. It could be one of those, or it could perhaps be where you do the impact sound layer with a screed on top. So one of the, and then you have to adapt the distance here to get it working properly, and perhaps also that this layer should go further out. So that's detail production. We can sort that out later in the in the project. Solve it in the mix, as we say with music. Something like that. So you see, whenever the lesson to take with you from this restaurant is that when you have a restaurant and you have dwellings, it's gonna cost a lot of construction height on all directions. Yeah, now we didn't even mention it, but I almost forgot. But the ground, bottom plate, if you got a concrete here, you also probably gonna need some kind of floating floor with either a screed or with something other like that, so you don't get the impact sound and structure-borne sound that comes this way as well, because the restaurant has a lot of chairs that's moving around, a lot of walking traffic as well. So yeah, it's tough. Every transmission path needs to be taken into account to get this one working. And in tonight's video, I'm wearing my V-neck pullover in green and orange and blue, which is a very, very nice combination that I like a lot. So, and the knit ties, of course. The knit ties are the best. I was so skeptical towards them at first, but when I got my first knit ties, there's no going back. So they're highly recommended. They're so cool. Okay, see you later.